Welcome to the Michael Blum Show, where we talk about things you don't want to talk about. We talk about sex. We talk about politics. We talk spirituality and substance abuse. Join us by calling 800-699-0980. Think, speak, and be heard. Here now is Michael Blum. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Michael Blum Show. It is 2019. My gosh, I'm so happy to see this day. Because if not, obviously would be something else going on here in our lives. I want to wish everyone back to the Michael Blum Show. If you don't know who I am or what goes on, I do a live broadcast of various topics, sometimes politics, sometimes health related, sometimes sexually related, sometimes just a general interest. And it is a call-in show. If you care to join us for any reason whatsoever, you feel free to give us a call. Call-in number is 800-699-0980. Again, that's 800-699-0980. I haven't done a show in a couple of weeks, actually almost a month, due to holidays and me being out of town and all sorts of other goodies. I spent my... I had a really... I don't know where I could start with it, but I went to New York. I had a great nephew who was actually being bar mitzvahed, and I went up there. My whole family met up there. That was something else. You know, I forgot what it's like traveling with children, particularly young children. So I traveled with my son, my daughter, my son-in-law, daughter-in-law, and all their kids. So I had a 7-month-old infant with me, and we also had, my granddaughter's a year old, and my grandson who's about 2.5. All of us together, and that was just nuts. No one slept for a week. And then my son came here to my house, stayed here with his baby. No one slept for a week. I think we're still trying to work off that and trying to get some sleep. But it was fun. I can't think of anything else better to do than to be a grandparent, you know? I was pretty tough with my own kids, but being a grandparent is something else. It really is. The old adage is you got to figure out a way to get to grandparent without actually having your own kids. But that's a tough thing to do, obviously so. So anyway, what is the Michael Blum Show? How did this all start? What's going on with it? Every new year I like to kind of give just an update, and actually not an update. What would you call it? A down date? I don't know. But anything, what's happened in the past and where we are today. Started off basically doing shows about helping people with substance abuse problems, Recovery Nation. Went on from there, been on many, many different broadcast systems. Last one I was on, we did not get along with management, and eventually I just stopped. They would have been more than happy to continue to take my money, but the feeling just wasn't there, and I thought I could do better with a podcast, and so that's what I've been doing. The show is heard live every Monday from 8 p.m. to whenever we stop, usually about an hour and a half, and it's broadcast live on my Facebook page, on my website, through Twitter, and through YouTube. So how would you get to hear me? It's difficult unless you actually are on my website, or you just pick up the podcast, because we also publish to SoundCloud, Mixcloud, and iTunes later on, all of the audio. But if you really want to watch it, I have a couple of links up on my website, which originally is called michaelblumshow.com. How's that for an original statement, huh? But you go to michaelblumshow.com, you'll see the tabs on the top. And if you go to Listen Now, I think is what the tab is called, you go ahead and you can pick up the stream either via YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, Periscope, all of those places. So I want to welcome everyone back again. Feel free to give me a call, 800-699-0980. I do not have any guests scheduled right now. It's hard to get guests in and around this time, but hopefully the next couple of weeks we'll have a few people on with us. Also, I always wanted this show to be a show for the people who watch or who listen. If there is anything that you would like to do, anything that you feel you might want to contribute to the show, I will have you on as a guest once I listen to you, talk to you, and see what's going on, and see what we can do together. And you can feel free to email me. It's Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, at michaelblumshow.com. That's how you can get in touch with me. That's the best way probably to do it. And that's pretty much the background. After doing Recovery Nation, we went on to just trying to go ahead and be of a community service and helping other people out. Then I switched gears and I had a sexologist as my co-host, and obviously you know what that topic was about. It's kind of funny to me how, depending on the venue you look at, if it's SoundCloud or Mixcloud or YouTube or whatever they are, how many hits I get depending on the subject matter. Some of those sites are very politically oriented, and that's where you get the most. Some of them are more sexually oriented, and that's where you get the most. But we have upcoming guests, Dr. William Norwell, who is an MD. He can talk to us about healthcare, about some of the politics and all that behind it. We have a technology expert who's going to explain about a little bit later on, who's going to, not today, but these are the guests that I have lined up, who's going to talk to us about technology and the use of technology and how technology actually is is changing employment and how that would all work. We have Deb Bowen, who's been on with us before. She is our nudist, so she's going to talk to us about your right to strip, to have your clothing off. We're going to have Dr. Kevin Emery hopefully on, and he's going to talk about adult deficit disorder. It should be interesting. And then Sherry Murphy, who deals with the feminine side of dating. My background, basically, I started off as a musician, started to teach children that had special issues, and became a dentist, and I've been doing this on and off since like 1997. That's broadcast either terrestrial for the most part, and/or terrestrial radio, plus internet, which is obviously becoming much more popular and the way to go right now. So I've kind of run the gamut with a lot of these things, and hopefully this year will pan out a little bit different. I'm always looking kind of to create something new, and that might not be the best thing for the show, but it certainly is the best thing for my mind. Diversity. Everyone talks about diversity all the time. The only diversity to me that really makes a difference is the diversity of thought. And that's the thing that's not taught and not talked about at all. So that's a shame about how that all works, but that's how it is. I believe that the problem with our government is the government, and the problem never solves itself. I think that Trump is trying to do what he can to drain the swamp, but he's not doing a good enough job. And tonight he's going to be on. If we're on that late, maybe we'll cover it here. If not, we'll talk about it next time around. After it's come out, the pundits have said whatever ridiculous moronic nonsense they'd like to, and that's that. We are involved with a government shutdown right now. Anyone notice something missing from your life? I'm personally very happy when the government shuts down, because then they can't do any damage. I wish the whole government would shut down. My viewpoint in terms of politics is kind of common sense politics. What is right for you, right for your house, right for your own life is usually good for the country as well. I think we live in a post-constitutional world right now. We live in a post-factual world right now, where what you think and what you feel is way more important than what actually is. And that will be eventually the thing that will drive a lot of people crazy and actually ruin the United States, and for the foreseeable future, if things continue to go how they're going now. I have a very, I feel that whenever I judge anything that's happening on, I want to find out if it's affecting anyone's rights or not. That's the thing that I judge everything by. The new law, whatever, every law, everything that goes on affects someone's rights. I mean, you can't just drive your car through that intersection if there's a red light up. Someone is hindering your ability to proceed. But that's for certain reasons, the public good and all of that, and you kind of weigh, well, is limiting this person's personal objective okay? Can it be done, or should it be done? And I kind of use that kind of approach to everything. I'm a libertarian in that way, but it is with a small L, because you have to also, if you have a libertarian kind of concept of things, you also have to kind of pepper that, I believe, with common sense. Because no one ideology works all the time, unless you're an ideologue and then you don't care. You put your blinders on and you proceed. Oh yeah, new economy is all because of Obama. Oh yeah, you think Trump did that? Oh, he didn't do that. Just put your blinders up and go, So basically, I am way more conservative than what goes on outside, but there are certain things that I see as issues and problems, and they probably need to be solved in a way that may not be too palatable for conservatives at all. Because again, one ideology doesn't help everyone out. I do want to give a shout out to a place that I just started using. 30 years of dentistry has pretty much messed up my whole back, my shoulder, and the whole left side of my body. I'm sitting like this for like 30 years, you know. And I've been to chiropractors, I've been to acupuncturists, I've been to actually just regular physicians and orthopedists, and none of them really could do a lot of good for me. However, stretching myself out really worked well. So I'm involved now with a place called Stretch Zone. They are not paying for this ad or for me to talk about them. It works for me. Whether it works for you or not, I don't know. But the only thing that seems to work with me is stretching me out. So I'm starting to do that there, and I'm starting to feel a lot more comfortable. So that's pretty good news, at least for me. Getting back to the government again, you know, the shutdown. Like I said, I don't think people really are feeling it. And it's always odd to me when I hear that non-essential personnel is the term that's used. Those are the people that basically are not getting paid. And it kind of hits me a little bit and say, well, why are we hiring non-essential personnel? I mean, what does that mean? Non-essential personnel? So people that clean up after people and protect the national parks, they're non-essential? You know, I don't think we should be hiring non-essential people. I mean, a security force is non-essential. The only thing to me that's really non-essential, which I wouldn't mind seeing affected, is Congress itself. You see, I think that when they close the government down, not one senator nor congressperson should get any type of pay or any money at all from the government. They should be the first to be affected. Pipe dream, huh? They're in the parties. They're having a party. They're not going to be affected by anything. Particularly with liberal stuff and the liberal left. You know, it's hard to really even call them what they are. And I think that the Democratic Party has a lot of work to do because some of their true colors are coming out. They don't want to have sensible gun laws. They want no guns. They don't want to have accurate and sensible border patrols and legislation in terms of immigration. They don't want that at all. They want open borders. They don't want to see the United States succeed and become successful. They don't want your individual abilities to shine through so that you can become an individual and work for your own happiness and liberty. That's not what the Democratic Party is about. You see, they want those crumbs back. And for someone like Nancy Pelosi, who's worth about $35 million, I'm sure she needs those crumbs. Because you see, who better to spend your money than the government? I mean, let's face it. You don't know. You're too goddamn stupid. I mean, the left has said that most of the United States is stupid anyway. That they're irreconcilably dumb and moronic. You could even listen to some of the people who put together Obamacare, where they say that if it was not for the stupidity of the American public, this law would never pass. I used to think that somehow we fall into somewhere on a line, on a category where that eventually politicians get to taking care of the constituents. I now no longer believe that to be true. I don't think that in terms of elections, that's about the only time when anyone cares about a constituent. The politicians come out of the woodwork like cockroaches, and they get your vote, and that's that. Trust me that the liberal left is going to do what they can to get rid of elections altogether. You know, I mean, I can kind of feel that in my bones already. Well, let's get rid of the Electoral College. Do you really want New York and California to decide who the president will be forever? Do you like what's going on there? Sanctuary city, bankrupt state? I almost would like to kind of like designate California as the asshole of the United States. If it needs an enema, you stick it up into California. And it could be the doormat for everybody in the world who's not doing well. And go ahead and let them come in. They can go in for free. Let them stay there. Malibu's a real good place. You know, I mean, all of those migrants and all of that, they're going to find a place to go there. I mean, Malibu almost burnt down, so there's plenty of work out there for them. They should stick them all there. Let them all go to the sanctuary cities. Let them all live there. Don't let them out into the rest of the United States. And rather than have a border wall on the southern border, just put one up between California and the rest of the nation. You know, be on the eastern part of California, separating us from Nevada and a couple other little areas. And that's what I would like to see, really. You know, I mean, I don't think that this government works for anybody anymore. This government, if you ever saw the movie Network, that's pretty much where we are right now in this country. The Everglades down here in Florida are becoming polluted. This has been happening over the last 30 years or so. We've had Republican and Democratic governors. We've had Republican and Democratic senators. And they all complain. And they all blame the other one for not taking care of this issue. But the truth of the matter is, and this is how it is in politics today, no one works for you. That's it. As long as each side, the reason that it's not happening and nothing is getting cleaned up is because they don't want it to be. They want it to be polluted. They want it to be disgusting because they're getting paid millions and millions of dollars in their campaign coffers, which they use for whoever knows what, by the sugar industry, which is the major pollutant out here. That's why. When things haven't happened in 20 or 30 years, it's because the politicians don't want it to happen. You know, I mean, Schumer and all the Democrats a couple of years ago wanted border security. Not anymore. Why? Trump. That's it. But the Democratic Party has really devolved quite a bit in the last year or two. You're starting to see some of their true colors coming out. I don't know how palatable a 90% tax on what you do. It's something that, you know, it's odd. You know, like, to me, there's also a lot of Jew hatred in the Democratic Party. Now, it's not to say that the crazy extreme right, they're Nazis. But they're not running the Republican Party, whereas the hatred and the people who hate and the party that's been the most devastating to the United States and continues to be so is still running the show right now, running half the show, let's say. Hopefully they never get into power. I really, can you imagine if Clinton was elected? You would not know that we live in such a banana republic, such a corrupt country. Two sets of laws for two sets of different people, you know. It's kind of, and the Democrats earlier do as I say, you know. You get all of these, oh, we need gun control, we need gun control. I heard all these people, was it on the Golden Globules Awards, the Golden Globes. I always love to hear multimillionaires complain about how terrible this country is. It really does my heart good to hear that. But, you know, the Golden Globe Awards, there was one point in there where they tried to keep it pretty tame in terms of politics, but they can't help themselves. And some things started to lead to about gun control. Do you think for a minute there's no gun control at that place? You think that those celebrities weren't protected by guns? You think that when they go home, a lot of them, that they don't have walls around their houses? I mean, Obama has a 10-fucking-foot wall around his compound in Washington, D.C. Why is he doing that? Don't you think he should put a sign out in front that says, this is a gun-free zone, and have open doors? That's what he wants for the country. That's what the Democrats want for the country. So you see, don't do as I say, just do as I tell you to do. Or actually, it's the other way around. No. Just do as I tell you to do. Don't do as I do. And that's kind of the attitude that I see going on. It's okay for them to do whatever they want. So, you know, what happens quite often is the New York Dems destroy a city or two, and then they go ahead and they move out of the city and they bring their ideology to, like, North Carolina. So that kind of thought, to me, starts to become like a metastatic cancer, and it's really not good for the United States. But you do not count anymore. It's really that simple. You do not count anymore. You want to see a change in government, government's not going to do it. They make too much money. Money must be removed. How would you remove money? My first thing would be to go ahead and change campaign finance law. I think that would be a real good way to start. First, I would not allow any corporations to donate to anyone. Now, that's a rather leftist idea, because I've heard that on the left. But like I said, I don't necessarily run one way or another. I really don't. And I think that would be good for the United States. Only individuals can give, only up to $1,000 one time or once per candidate or something like that. And then you'd see people all of a sudden start to do things that are for the people of the United States. This is not a government for the people and by the people anymore. This is a government for the government, run by the government for the government's well-being. This is a massive bureaucracy. Look how far we've come from the original concept. The original concept was you have the right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness, however it is you want to do that, and we're here to protect you to make sure that you could do that. That's our only job. Make sure no one takes away your civil liberties. Doesn't mean house you if you're poor. Doesn't mean give you clothing. It doesn't mean any of those things. That's what charitable organizations used to be about. Want some tax revenue? I would go ahead and get rid of tax-free situations in churches, in religious institutions, and educational institutions that crank out leftist kids that know nothing. I mean, what kind of job are you going to get if if your specialty was lesbian dance? Folks, if your degree that you're going for now ends in the word studies, then you're wasting your time. You're probably wasting mom and dad's money as well. And it's a lot of money. And then you'll be in debt when you come out, which is perfect for the left, because they don't want you to succeed. If you want to look at the most impoverished, poorest places with the most crime, the most drugs, the worst school, the most poverty, go to any city in the United States that's been run by Democrats for 30, 40 years. And that's where you find it, because their system does not work. Venezuela, one of the richest countries in the world, with all of the oil in the world, run into ground by socialism and communism. So let's not really call it socialism. Let's call it democratic socialism. It's still socialism. It's just putting in, let's not call it a ribeye steak. Let's call it a Louisiana ribeye steak. It's a ribeye steak. You're a socialist. So basically, if you're a Democrat now, you're a socialist. Unless I see some changes coming up, but I don't see any of them. There's going to be a big rift. They have to decide whether they're going to actually be of the old-fashioned, middle-of-the-road kind of ilk. You got to realize if John F. Kennedy was today a Democrat, he'd be laughed out of the party. How dare you say, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Your country's supposed to run your life from cradle to grave. Just ask Obama. He had a whole video on that he put up for an hour or two, and it got so panned it had to be removed. I think it was called The Life of Gloria. I might have it in my video cabinet somewhere, but basically it was how the government will help you. And, it's funny, Reagan always said the most frightening words you can hear is, we're from the government, we're here to help you. Even in Scripture, I was reading something, it reminded me about that leaders will never help you. Leaders are there for themselves, and they will not help you in your time of need. And this is from it's called Wisdom of the Fathers, the Pirkei Avot. And they're talking about they're talking about some of the things that are rather current today, and it's kind of weird, but that's how it is. So basically, I have a very big libertarian streak. I judge everything by how will this affect your ability to pursue your own happiness. Basically, if it allows you to do that, I'm okay. And basically, if it doesn't allow you to do that, I'm okay. So that gets into stickier questions like abortion. And I got to tell you, I've gone back and forth on this in my own mind. Basically, in terms of what I've said, is that I think it's women's bodies. They have the right to do what they want with their bodies. But I've also seen surgical abortions. If you haven't seen one, go onto YouTube. They got a couple up there so that you really know what you're talking about. You really can see what's going on. Women, when they're pregnant and their bellies stick out a little bit, they don't say, oh, look how cute, my little fetus in here is. They don't refer to it that way. It's a baby. It's a child. It is the potential for life. So I've kind of come to the conclusion for myself that, in a realistic way, if you have to have a surgical abortion, I'm not for it. It's like kind of like, oh, look at that, an ear. Oh, I think we got a piece of his arm. And it's disgusting. It really is. So that's something I am not for at all. However, if it's an early pregnancy thing, I think that one of the worst things can happen to a child is to be born into a family where he's not wanted, or not wanted for the right reasons. There are a lot of kids that are born for all sorts of reasons. Adds a couple of bucks to a check from the government. When you do that and you throw out stuff like that, people do take advantage of it, folks. So abortion's been kind of a tough one for me. Right now, I kind of feel that obviously if you're in the Bible Belt, you're going to have different sentiment than if you're in Los Angeles, where it may be considered just another method of birth control for many people. And I think that the states should decide for themselves, if it ever came back to that, as to what they would want to do. Now, you got to remember that certain things to me are apolitical. Everything is always viewed through a political bent. But one of my theorems is that, just like A plus B equals C, is that any topic plus politics equals bullshit. So once politics get involved with mostly anything, it kind of ruins it. That's the end of it. So on the issue of abortion, to me, it's an apolitical issue because I was around before Roe v. And the wealthy people, if they wanted it, they found a doctor who would do it anyway, or they went to Canada, had it done there. And there are people that use coat hangers in the alleyways, you know? So you're not going to stop someone. It's like thinking that because it's illegal to murder someone, therefore no one now will murder anyone. You know, oh, it's one of the commandments, thou shalt not kill. So what? So what? People don't care. That's not an issue for most people. It really isn't. So I've been talking here about 26 minutes. I want to take a little break, but I'm not going to leave here. I'm just going to run a quick video, which is kind of like a little history lesson of the Democratic Party, so we don't forget where they come from and where they're going to.
When you think about racial equality and civil rights, which political party comes to mind? The Republicans or the Democrats? Most people would probably say the Democrats, but this answer is incorrect. Since its founding in 1829, the Democratic Party has fought against every major civil rights initiative and has a long history of discrimination. The Democratic Party defended slavery, started the Civil War, opposed Reconstruction, founded the Ku Klux Klan, imposed segregation, perpetrated lynchings, and fought against the Civil Rights Acts of the 1950s and 1960s. In contrast, the Republican Party was founded in 1854 as an anti-slavery party. Its mission was to stop the spread of slavery into the new Western territories with the aim of abolishing it entirely. This effort, however, was dealt a major blow by the Supreme Court in the 1857 case Dred Scott versus Sandford. The court ruled that slaves aren't citizens, they're property. The 7 justices who voted in favor of slavery, all Democrats. The 2 justices who dissented, both Republicans. The slavery question was, of course, ultimately resolved by a bloody civil war. The commander-in-chief during that war was the first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, the man who freed the slaves. 6 days after the Confederate Army surrendered, John Wilkes Booth, a Democrat, assassinated President Lincoln. Lincoln's vice president, a Democrat named Andrew Johnson, assumed the presidency. But Johnson adamantly opposed Lincoln's plan to integrate the newly freed slaves into the South's economic and social order. Johnson and the Democratic Party were unified in their opposition to the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, the 14th Amendment, which gave blacks citizenship, and the 15th Amendment, which gave blacks the vote. All 3 passed only because of universal Republican support. During the era of Reconstruction, federal troops stationed in the South helped secure rights for the newly freed slaves. Hundreds of black men were elected to Southern state legislatures as Republicans, and 22 black Republicans served in the U.S. Congress by 1900. The Democrats did not elect a black man to Congress until 1935. But after Reconstruction ended, when the federal troops went home, Democrats roared back into power in the South. They quickly reestablished white supremacy across the region with measures like black codes, laws that restricted the ability of blacks to own property and run businesses, and they imposed poll taxes and literacy tests used to subvert black citizens' right to vote. And how was all of this enforced? By terror, much of it instigated by the Ku Klux Klan, founded by a Democrat, Nathan Bedford Forrest. As historian Eric Foner, himself a Democrat, notes, in effect, the Klan was a military force serving the interests of the Democratic Party. President Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat, shared many views with the Klan. He resegregated many federal agencies and even screened the first movie ever played at the White House, the racist film, The Birth of a Nation, originally entitled The Klansman. A few decades later, The only serious congressional opposition to the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1964 came from Democrats. 80% of Republicans in Congress supported the bill, less than 70% of Democrats did. Democratic senators filibustered the bill for 75 days until Republicans mustered the few extra votes needed to break the logjam. And when all of their efforts to enslave blacks, keep them enslaved, and then keep them from voting had failed, the Democrats came up with a new strategy. If black people are going to vote, they might as well vote for Democrats, as President Lyndon Johnson was purported to have said about the Civil Rights Act. I'll have them voting Democrat for 200 years. So now, the Democratic Party prospers on the votes of the very people it has spent much of its history oppressing. Democrats falsely claim that the Republican Party is the villain, when in reality, it's the failed policies of the Democratic Party that have kept blacks down. Massive government welfare has decimated the black family. Opposition to school choice has kept them trapped in failing schools. Politically correct policing has left black neighborhoods defenseless against violent crime. So when you think about racial equality and civil rights, which political party should come to mind? I'm Carol Swain, professor of political science and law at Vanderbilt University for Prager University.
And there you have it, a little bit of a history lesson for folks out there. Carol Swain, I had her on my show once. She's a very, very proper woman, very, very brilliant woman, very, very knowledgeable. The thing that I think that most liberals hate the most would be a very, very educated female black person who's conservative. I mean, couldn't string up a whole bunch of other things more than that. Now, the last part of it you have to realize is interesting, when LBJ says, I'll have them N-words voting for Democrats for 200 years. You got to realize Obama did nothing for the black population, nothing for anyone in the United States like that. You know, people had this dream that after Obama was elected, oh, we're now going to be in a post-racial United States. How'd that work out? More hatred now than ever before. Because you see, the Democratic Party always was and always will be the party of hate. I mean, what's their platform now? We hate Trump. Forget about the United States. Forget about doing anything positive. We hate Trump. We're for the wall and getting border security and all of that, but now that Trump is the president, we hate Trump. So how will they do that? They are the party of hate. It's hard to go ahead and run a party and think that that's your political platform, particularly when you couple it with things like a 90% tax hike, a level of 90%, and some of the other things, free everything, free. Where's free going to come from? No such thing. Milton Friedman, one of my favorites. No such thing as a free lunch. And by the way, I do believe that almost all the problems in the United States, they're all economic. It really is not racial so much. You get a guy who's a brilliant black guy who's making millions of bucks. You don't give a shit that he's living next door to you. Even if you're a bigot, you don't care. I think that social advancement happens slowly. And you can't move it. You can't rush it. You can make people aware of it, but that's about it. So as time moves on, people will get to be better with each other, and they'll learn more about each other. You can't go ahead and force that. You can't pass a law that says you must love your neighbor. You can't pass a law that says it's not enough to treat blacks equally. You have to think a certain way. You see, this is where the Democrats are starting to go now with it's not, oh, I think I'm a woman today. I think I'm black today. I think I'm this today. I think I'm that today. Oh, but we believe in science. We're in science, climate change, which the science is kind of shaky if you really read it. So we have the party of hate. Now, how the heck are they going to work with Trump? They're going to work with Trump? You mean they're going to work with the person they've been calling Hitler, a demon, the devil, the worst thing in creation, a womanizer, someone who hates women? I mean, you name it. How could they work with that? Would you work with someone like that? So either they have to eat crow and say, well, we really didn't mean that because we're a bunch of assholes, or they'll have to go ahead and just do nothing, which is, I think, what their plan is. Their plan is to go ahead, stall, do whatever damage they can. Look where the Mueller investigation is going. Isn't that a good one? That's a good one, isn't it? Huh? Open carte blanche like that. There's no collusion. There's no obstruction. So maybe we'll look at his taxes from 80 years ago. It's really. And people say, oh, yeah, they're going to find that missing link. They're going to find that one. We'll get them. And they're reporters and people. They live for that. They live every day. They wake up. I hope we get Trump today. I know it's going to happen today. And they're always wrong because they're looking for something that does not exist. You know, you can't go ahead and do much in terms of ridiculing anything if it doesn't really exist in real life. And they just flip and flop and go back and forth. And it's all because of Trump. Because he's not one of the party. And when I say the opposition to Trump, I mean both the Democrats and the Republicans. As a matter of fact, I expect the Democrats to be as Democrats are. That's not much of a difference. And if you notice diversity, they call for, there's no diversity in the Democratic Party. They almost goose step and think the same way, or they're out. That's what's getting to be kind of difficult. And with the Ku Klux Klan, their versions of that, Antifa and Black Lives Matter and all of that is just as terrible, all fascist crap. But they won't be working with Trump, I can guarantee you that. They won't give him the time of day. So it should be interesting. When I say these things, I say, I really hope I'm wrong, but rarely am I. So we'll see what happens. He's going to give a speech in about 40 minutes, the President of the United States. And we'll see what baloney goes on with that. Because, this is a big flip-flop,
People who enter the United States without our permission are illegal aliens, and illegal aliens should not be treated the same as people who entered the U.S. legally. When we use phrases like undocumented workers, we convey a message to the American people that their government is not serious about combating illegal immigration, which the American people overwhelmingly oppose.
And that's true. The American people still overwhelmingly oppose having illegal immigration into this country. But these guys flip-flop like you change your underwear. It's quite interesting to watch. It really is fascinating.
There is bipartisan hope of getting it done. This year, the Senate passed an immigration reform bill by a wide bipartisan majority, and it addresses the key issues that need to be addressed. It would strengthen our borders. It would level the playing field by holding employers accountable if they knowingly hire undocumented workers. It would modernize our legal immigration system so that we eliminate the backlog of family visas and make it easier to attract highly skilled entrepreneurs from beyond our borders. It would make sure that everybody plays by the same rules by providing a pathway to earn citizenship for those who are living in the shadows. A path that includes passing a background check and learning English and paying taxes and a penalty and getting in line behind it. Everyone trying to come here the right way. And each of these pieces would go a long way towards fixing our broken immigration system.
Bunch of nonsense, huh? You ever hear such crap in your life? The reason, again, that it's not happening is because politicians don't want it to. The Republicans and those that ilk really love the cheap labor that they're provided with. And the Democrats, the only reason they're working now is because this is a new political base that they can go ahead and take advantage of. And basically, these are the new slaves. These are the new slaves.
Each of them has been supported by Democrats and Republicans in the past. There's no reason we can't come together and get it done. And what's more, we know the immigration reform that we're proposing would boost our economy and shrink our deficits. Independent economists have said that if the Senate bill became law over the next 2 decades, our economy would grow by $1.4 trillion more, and it would reduce our deficits by $850 billion more. And you don't have to be an economist to figure out that workers will be more productive if they've got their families here with them. They're not worried about deportation. They're not living halfway around the world. This isn't just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. Right now, it's up to Republicans in the House to decide if we can move forward as a country on this bill. If they don't want to see it happen, they've got to explain why. The good news is, just this past week, Speaker Boehner said that he is hopeful we can make progress on immigration reform. And that is good news. I believe the Speaker is sincere. I think he genuinely wants to get it done. And that's something we should be thankful for this week. And I think there are a number of other House Republicans who also want to get this done. Some of them are hesitant to do it in one big bill like the Senate did. That's okay. They can. It's Thanksgiving. You know, we can carve that bird into multiple pieces.
And there you go. If that speech was given today by Trump, he'd be booed. how it is, folks. We live in a very, very bad situation. Our government does not work anymore. And that's why you're seeing so much of the stuff that you hear from the Democratic side about trying something new, trying something different. Okay, so it's kind of weird how all of this works. So many issues.
On immigration, she was interesting. She had a little bit of both here. Listen first when she talks about, woman said, what about President Obama? Gentleman, I'm sorry, said President Obama is the deporter in chief. Would you stop that policy?
I mean, the horror of a father or a mother going to work and being picked up and immediately whisked away, and children coming home from school to an empty house and nobody can say where their mother or their father is. That is just not who we are as Americans.
So there she's saying she thinks fewer people already here who are working, who are not doing anything wrong after obviously they broke the law to get here, but they should be able to stay. But listen to this. We've had this crisis in recent days of all these children stacking up in detention centers at the border. On that one, Hillary Clinton took a much tougher line, saying no, they can't stay.
They should be sent back as soon as it can be determined who responsible adults and their families are, because there are concerns about whether all of them can be sent back, but I think all of them.
Responsible adults don't send their children halfway across the continent to go ahead and go to the United States. Responsible adults, what a moron.
Who can be, should be reunited with their families.
That one there, I think the liberals are going to say, hey, wait a minute, right?
Yeah, I think so. And this was one example, I think, of from this town hall of her either taking both sides of many different controversial issues or being extremely cautious. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that after saying in one breath that the president should have more leeway on this issue and should be more sensitive to families, and then taking sort of like a harder line that you might hear from like a House Republican, and the next breath was actually pretty striking.
Well, she doesn't want to be seen as somehow enabling the sort of surge of illegal immigration across the border. But I think broadly watching that interview, John, I am struck by the fact that she is running to be the nominee of Barack Obama's party in 2016.
Thank God that witch didn't get into power. Can you imagine that? She changes her viewpoint depending on the audience she's talking to. She actually changes her viewpoint more times than most people would change their underwear. It's like I said, it's a difficult time that we live in. I hope that there's an answer to it more than what I've been yapping about. But we're going to find out in about, I would say in about 20 minutes or so. I'm not going to cover it here. I'm going to end the show in a few minutes. If someone does want to call, feel free to do so. You do it now at 800-699-0980, 800-699-0980. I'm going to play a couple of ads here, and I'll be back in a couple of minutes to wrap it up, and I'll speak to you in a little bit. Join me on Tuesday evenings from 8 to 10 p.m. for The Michael Blum Show, where we talk about the things you don't want to talk about. We talk about sex. We talk about politics. We talk substance abuse and spirituality. So think, speak, and be heard. Call us at 800-699-0980 and join us on The Michael Blum Show. Hi, this is Michael Blum. Join me on Mondays from 9 to 11 p.m. for The Michael Blum Show, where we talk about the things you don't want to talk about. We talk about sex, substance abuse, spirituality, and politics. Think, speak, and be heard. Join us on The Michael Blum Show. Hi, this is Michael Blum. If you would like to be part of The Michael Blum Show and be a sponsor, call us at 800-524-8040 or email me at michael@michaelblumshow.com. We could have been listening to your commercial for your business rather than this stuff. Call us at 800-524-8040. Hi. At The Michael Blum Show, we talk about the things you don't want to talk about. If in your own personal life you have an experience or an event or something that's changed you, we'd love to hear about it and maybe get your story on air. Feel free to give us a call, 800-699-0980. Again, that's at 800-699-0980. Or feel free to email me at michael@blumradio.com. That's Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, at blumradio, B-L-U-M radio.com. And we will get in touch with you and put your story on the air. Hi, this is Michael Blum. Join me on Tuesday evenings from 8 to 10 p.m. for The Michael Blum Show, where we talk about the things you don't want to talk about. We talk about sex. We talk about politics. We talk substance abuse and spirituality. So think, speak, and be heard. Call us at 800-699-0980 and join us on The Michael Blum Show. Well, everybody, I want to thank you all for joining me this evening. I had some fun. I hope you did too. I hope you listen to us in the future. As I'm tempted to say every time, is please don't let all this politics become your way of life and your existence. Have a normal life. Go ahead and live life to its fullest. Everything you have to remember is possible. Fewer things are probable, but one thing is certain, and that's that you're alive. So go ahead out and live life to its fullest, because tomorrow is promised to nobody. Speak to you next time around. Have fun, folks.